All right, welcome everyone. This podcast is called Unveiling. My name is Jordan Bain. I'm a third step ritual master, guide, Kabbalah teacher, and healer, more in the mystery school. I've been doing this work for a long time. My guest tonight is Dr. Nick Penzarella, and I've known Nick for about 6 years now. We met back in 2015, and he's a chiropractor. He's been in practice now, I think since, how many years have you been in practice?
Since 2014.
Since 2014.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we've been working together really ever since we met about 6 years ago. Nick works in Somerville, Massachusetts. He runs LifeWorks Chiropractic. This is a corrective chiropractic office focusing on neurostructural care for his patients. He's been an initiate in the Modern Mystery School since 2015. He's also a Healers Academy graduate and a second step ritual master. He sought out the mystery school lineage because he wanted to take power back in his life to be a better person for himself, relationships, and for his patients. The tools he's learned in the mystery school have helped him go from surviving to thriving. So Dr. Nick, as I like to call you sometimes, welcome on the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So before we dive in with opinions, I'd love to hear a little bit about how this work has helped you in your life. Like what are the shifts that you've seen since you began doing mystery school work?
Wow, that can be a really loaded question. It's very often it's like what hasn't been able to shift in my life doing mystery school. It's like it has touched every aspect. Excuse me. It's touched every aspect of my being. Literally, every way that I function. And I joke with you that mystery school has made me a administratively functional adult. Because there were these ways of being where you just I didn't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to, like I don't want to take that next step, and then
like resistance to responsibility.
Resistance city responsibility. What's that? That's that sounds like, oh, I always wanted some of that, but no, I didn't really want it when it came around. And mystery school lineage and teachings have given me the power to take everything I want to change and just start little by little. And it's like the lubrication that gets me to just put one step in front of the other, breathe in, breathe out, and before you know it, you've accomplished these massive things. So
absolutely, yeah, it's like this podcast. Just show up every week, do it, and now I have this library of like 30 videos, and I can just send people there.
It's really fantastic. It's an incredible podcast.
I'm grateful to add you into that library and talk about this really super important topic of opinions. Let's dive in, and opinions seem like they're everywhere. Opinions are perhaps so common to being human that we just take them for granted, right? We think if you're around, you have an opinion. There's that really vulgar statement, opinions are like a certain part of the anatomy. Everyone has one and most of them stink. So everyone's heard that before, or if you haven't, now you have. But going deeper with opinions, like why do they stink? We know why they stink when they're aimed at us.
Of course.
Right. Like, when you're the subject of someone else's opinions, it doesn't feel good. But there's things that we think are, maybe just the way life is. But in the mystery school, we might say, well, maybe that's not how it is. Maybe that's just your opinion. And opinions are, let's define them a little bit. Like opinions are different than belief systems, although opinions and belief systems have huge overlaps. They're some ways they're pretty much synonymous. It's pretty much saying the same thing to say like, well, I have this opinion and it's probably not really true. It's probably more of a belief than actual reality. So if we can define reality as something that, we can all agree on and we can all touch it and feel it and analyze it and basically come to the same conclusions about it, then opinions are like thoughts about that reality, which may or may not really even be true. And in many cases, our opinions, we think, perhaps as humans, I speak from my own experience as a human and then what I've seen working with thousands of people, we often think they're not really too bad. Like they're just the way I see it, right? I have my perspective, you have your perspective, and there's that phrase, everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? You're entitled to your opinion. And it's true.
There you go.
You are entitled to your opinion. But what does that do? So, metaphysically, they're part of how we interact with each other, but maybe they don't have to be. Maybe they don't have to be. So that's a really big statement to say that opinions might not need to be part of our experience. So what have your experiences been with opinions in your life? What have opinions meant to you? Big picture, and then we'll go more detailed.
Well, I joked about this with you just a few minutes ago. It's like I'm the most opinionated person that I know.
Fair enough.
uh, or at least I really have been. And even in there was one time in a past relationship where I was spouting off about something which clearly was irrelevant, as most opinions actually end up being. And she said, "Oh, you and your opinions." And I just remember, boy, did that trigger me so much. But that's actually was the beginning of a deeper conversation with myself that ultimately led to your front door at the
Interesting.
Modern Mystery School, because it has this. You talked about how if we define reality, right? So, okay, so we can all look at this and see it, and we can objectively see maybe what's going on. And an opinion is like that belief or how you feel about it. It's like if you know what's going on, if you have this objective concept of reality, why do I need to feel one way or the other about it?
Mm.
And often it comes back to like unchecked emotional charge about something. I think we see this a lot in like identity politics. We're not going to don't want to get into that at all,
Mm-hmm.
but you just see that we have that. Um, it's caused just such a rift.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's in some way stayed on task to the question that you've asked me. It's that
Sure. Well, I'm
opinions,
just asking about your personal experiences with opinions, so it's all fair game.
right? So, and even to drill down on that a little bit more, my opinions have essentially made me a miserable person at
Mm.
times, and they've put me in a place where I have to either meditate or do personal work or go to Kabbalah or go do a healing or just sit with it
Mm.
to just go, oh, well, why do I think this way? Because ultimately what's
Mm.
happening is I'm contributing my own personal unhappiness, clearly unhappy of the unhappiness of anybody around me when I'm in opinion. But ultimately it all leads back like right in here. It's like, where's my happiness? Where's my joy? It's like my opinions rob me of my joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be robbed of my joy, and I certainly don't want to be the theft of my own joy. So the
Right.
only person to discuss with that essentially is yourself, and you have to sit with yourself and go, well, why is that? Why do I think that?
I think you might have just dropped like too much wisdom for the audience. I'm not sure. We need to like rewind that a bit and be like, whoa, joy. Like, how do we get to talking about joy? Because you're almost juxtaposing what I'm hearing, like joy and opinions.
Mm,
That's what I'm reading between the lines into what you're saying, is that you're saying, well, if I want to have joy, my opinions are the main thing stopping that.
or keep it, yeah. They're one of the main things that rob me of my joy. I think
Mm.
it. Anything that you're going to hold, any kind of belief that you're going to hold, and then not have any action on it. It's like you're just sitting there. You're
Mm.
just sitting there holding this thing that it just doesn't need to be. And often it might come at the expense of another person.
It's interesting when you're connecting, opinions are something that you're holding but not taking action on.
Mm,
Right. And that's like, I don't want to try and create any definitions or dogma here, because that's never how the mystery school operates. So let's look at, if you're saying that opinions, joy, we're drawing these interconnections. Um, what if opinions can't get acted on? Then let's look at reality. There's reality, right? So reality is something we can agree on and touch and feel. And when we analyze it, we can kind of come to the same conclusions about it and
right.
say, okay, so this thing is objective reality. This thing over here is real. But then an opinion is like something on top of that reality. Like it's sitting on top of the reality, but it's not really the reality.
Mm,
So action, at least in the mystery school definition of action, like Kabbalistically, we talk about the four worlds, and the final world of manifesting anything is the world of doing it, taking action on it. So you get the inspiration, you think about it, you plan it out, and you do it. Great. But how do you take action on something that's not real? That's really interesting. It's like you kind of don't, right?
Yeah,
Kind of can't.
I'm chomping at the bit to be like, you kind of don't. It's like I feel like I'm in class. I want to raise my hand.
Yeah, please. Well, it's just you and I, so raise your hand and take it away.
That's really wild, right? So it's like you have this thing that is not real, as you said. The opinion is kind of like not real, and it's sitting on what is real. So it's like coloring your experience with reality or objectively what's going on. So it's like putting a lens on.
Right.
Um,
Like a
and
fake lens.
right, and but I guess if I look at it this way, if I'm putting this lens on and I'm trying to see my world um, through that lens, ultimately the way you see your world, this has got all kinds of consciousness stuff and everything that I've read. It all just goes back to like you don't see things as they are, you see things as you are,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're coloring your own perception of reality. You're really missing out on, you're not seeing yourself clearly. So
Right.
you know
Well, there's that mirroring effect in the
hesitate with
physical
that.
world.
It's hard to unpack it, but I think maybe the energy of that comes through a little bit better than the words of that do.
Well, let's unpack it. Like the physical world is our mirror as long as we have a human body.
Yeah.
And it's because we learn as souls, we learn through manifestation. And then we gather the information from what we've manifested out there in the world, we gather it back in through our senses. And so when we manifest something into the world, if we manifest it as we are, which of course we have to because we always have our filter.
Right.
Our filter is always going to be clogged with something, whether it's opinions or belief systems or old traumas or emotional charge that we don't understand or know what to do with. It's very, very difficult. I mean, the whole work of the mystery school, in a certain sense, the whole work of people who are doing Kabbalah and the Tree of Life with the mystery school is clearing out the subconscious mind. So we have less of a filter. The lens is cleaner, right? And that's never a perfected process. As long as we're a human being, we've never arrived at the end of that clearing process where we absolutely see true reality the way it really is, because everything that we see around us is duality. It is, a separated state. There's always opposing forces by the very nature of things, down to a, atomic, subatomic, quantum level. There's different opposing charges, like negative and positive charges, different quantum spins that oppose each other. We have, because of that reflection in the physical world, if we say that the physical world is somehow objective by definition, like it's objects, and that it reflects things by definition, if we accept that, I'm not, maybe you don't accept that, that's okay. But just for the purposes of this discussion,
I'm
if
happy to go with that.
yeah, if the physical world is objective and it's real, quote unquote, real, then if we want to manifest something into it, that the degree to which it's going to teach us about ourselves, we have to be in reality rather than in opinion. And when we are in opinion, the reflection coming back to us from the physical world is also going to reflect our opinion. And I would venture to say, as a Kabbalah teacher and a mystery school guide, and all the thousands of people that I've worked with, I've always seen that the opinion distorts. And then the reflection that comes back is painful.
Mm.
That's like, if we have to like totally cut to the chase, total bottom line, because the opinion distorts the reflection, it causes pain. There's some kind of pain that comes out of that. And this reminds me of, what Ipsis Misedeto and I were talking about like a month ago or something. I think it was right at the beginning of February, end of January. We spoke about, Buddhist teachings and suffering. And if opinion is everywhere in the world, and then everyone is manifesting through opinion in some way, then reflections will always cause pain to some degree. Maybe it's only a tiny bit of pain. Maybe it's almost imperceptible because we've cleaned up enough of our subconscious material that what's coming back to us is pretty pure and we just have little tweaks to make. Or for a lot of people, what's coming back to us is so overwhelming, we don't even know what to do with it. And it continues to spin us off for the rest of our lives into fantasies. And then we build more opinions on top of those fantasies. And that's kind of like the state of the world in a lot of ways. Just to be really direct, is that We've built whole belief systems and whole generations and whole cultural movements on opinions and thinking that things are a certain way. And, I'm not necessarily here on this podcast to blow up all of those things and become public enemy number one. But, there's a good chance that most things that most people hold as value systems right now in society are founded at least in part on opinions, even if at their core, there's some really valuable, fundamental, positive virtues and principles. It's like there's a lot that gets added into virtues and goodness and sort of slapped on top of it as an opinion.
Mm.
And when we get down to the essence of things, which is kind of the whole path of the mystery school, we're looking at like, how do we strip away opinions? How do we let go of these opinions so we can get back to the reality, get back to like the essentials of what does it mean to really live life? So how do you see opinions affecting, different areas of life? Like, how do you see them affecting relationships? You mentioned relationships before and sort of tongue in cheek joking about how you're the most opinionated person, and your ex-girlfriend was saying to you, oh, you and your opinions. What do you see in relationships with opinions?
Well, you sort of color your experience with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this would be accurate, but I think it might work. Is we kind of, opinions are kind of like they're like your story.
Mm.
In some ways, if they are not that, they kind of parallel with like your story. And I used to do landmark work, and one of the main tenets that they had talked about was there's what happened and there's your story about it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that kind of works with like there's reality and then there's your kind of belief about it and there's your opinion.
Right.
So you go through this life with in terms of relationships, and I'll only speak to my experiences. You go through this life, you develop your stories, your opinions about the way things should be, or the way you like things, or whatever it is you've made up in your head about what a partner is supposed to be. Because ultimately, like ultimately you're just looking for somebody to heal your wounding, and that doesn't work. So until you take control of that and you say, I'm the one that's responsible for healing my own wounding. Basically, they make all relationships fail. They've made all of my love relationships fail up until now, still going. Right? Whew.
Thanks, Mystery School.
Thank you, Mystery School. But Mystery School helps me get out of my own way to look at, okay, what happened and what am I thinking about that? And what is it that I really need to do? And what do I really need to do to show up for my partner?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always fun. It's not always easy. You don't always even realize you're in opinion. But
Right.
if you do have the tools, which we do have as initiates, you can sit back and go, oh, okay, yep, this is this. And then, well, let me go apologize first and foremost, because all those things were extremely hurtful. And I don't like to be talked to like that either. So let me just clear that. And then let's have a discussion around it. And, I vowed a long time ago that I'm just going to try my best every day, and it just keeps working out.
Yeah.
So, but even in practice, okay, so as a holistic chiropractor, I have certain opinions about life and health and the where health comes from and what interventions might be helpful or not so helpful. And I can see this in my relationship with my patients very early on in my career. Is was a philosophically straight chiropractor, which means the body. I know that the body can heal itself, and the less interference you give to that, the better off and more brilliant your healing experience is going to be. So in past practices, I don't really do it so much in my own, but in practice, someone would come to me and they, I'm thinking about getting this cortisone shot and this, that, and the other. And in my head, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why? But the energy's coming out, so I might as well have just been saying it. Why would you get a cortisone shot? You're just putting tape over the check engine light, so you're going to be in all this pain and all this dysfunction, but you're not going to feel it. So you're just going to keep wrecking the joint. All right. Now look back at that. Was that in any way helpful to the person that came to you for help?
Mm-hmm.
No. And though you may have educated them on it because you color your opinion through like, oh, my opinion is necessary. It's like they're asking me, this is what I'm about as a doctor. Again, story.
But we even call it that. I want your professional opinion.
Yeah, right. I want your professional opinion, and like my professional opinion is this a stupid idea, right?
Right.
That's kind of like the Philly coming out in me, but like I
Right.
would say that with my energy, I definitely wouldn't just straight say that.
Yeah.
Um, but what that really holds you back from is, what's this person really asking me? So they're asking me for my help on an issue. They're asking me for my help. They're asking for help. And when one person asks for help from another human being, the last thing they want is judgment on it.
Right.
And opinion really comes with judgment. I mean, it's you have judged in your particular way that your opinion is right.
Yeah.
Um, and that's, I think that kind of speaks to it.
Yeah. So what are then, for example, what are alternatives? Like what have you shifted into to shift away from opinion in your practice?
So a system
You
of
gave some
asking
examples in your relationships, right? Of like ways, apologizing or, approaching in a different way. Like how have you shifted that stuff in your professional practice?
So I've really shifted more to asking questions of people.
Mm.
And don't get me wrong, I still have my moments for sure.
Hmm.
People have described me as very rooted in my convictions.
Hmm.
Uh, and I don't know if that's the same thing. There are some things that like I stand for something, and people will say if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Right.
There are things that I stand for. I stand for my patients getting well. I stand for them empowering themselves to understand that their body is able to heal itself in a society and a culture, in essentially sometimes almost like a medical dictatorship that tells you over and over that you're sick. Your body is dumb. It needs this pill, this surgery, this other thing. I stand and say, no, that's not it. That's my line in the sand. But that's different from saying, well, how are you asking me for help? So if someone says, I think I'm getting a cortisone shot, my next question is, okay, why? Why are you thinking about getting a cortisone shot? What do you think about that?
Hmm.
And then they'll answer and say, okay, well, what do you feel about it? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that choice to get that cortisone shot? And it could be anything. Some people are like, yep, dope, I'm in, that's it. And then other people, they will unpack, they start to unpack really what it is that they're looking for out of you.
Hmm.
Ultimately, what comes down to, are you listening and are you hearing? And if you are in opinion, if you're in your own head, or you're really down on your own stuff, you're missing out on a deeper conversation. You're not hearing what the other person is asking you. And can you really connect with that person? No.
Hmm.
So I've switched to asking more questions, or um, I will actually just shut up and I'll smile and I'll let them talk just a little bit more. And I say, okay, that's really interesting. Let's talk about it a little bit more when you're done. And then I'll just put my hands on them and I'll breathe with them. I'll sort of match my energy to theirs on the table.
Hmm.
And that then it's like our energy fields are connecting. And then of course it's going to make for a much better adjustment. And then what's really interesting about that is if it was one of those circumstances where I might have had an opinion on it, they'll kind of get up and have their own conclusion. I didn't have to do anything.
Hmm.
And I've made my client happy. And I've helped spread light in the world by helping another human experience their reality in a little bit crisper, a little bit clearer way.
Hmm.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
How else have you noticed opinions? Like, we talked a little bit before the show and we laid out some categories here. How would you say that, opinions in your experience have affected things like your spirituality and your psychology?
Whew. So, I used to have these deep ideas of what spiritual meant.
Mm.
And I really, when I first stepped on a spiritual path, it's almost like I wanted to become that thing that I thought spiritual was.
Mm.
Um, and be that the guy who meditates all the time, or the guy wearing nala beads on my arm, or like, have, so it's like showing other people that I'm spiritual or went through that phase. All of that is opinion. All of that is like that lens in which you want to see things, that lens in which you want to see things.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
In this case, how you want to see yourself.
how you want to see
You want
yourself.
other people to see you.
Right, right. But there's a stark moment. I don't know for everybody, but for me, and it was definitely along my path in mystery school, in
Mm.
initiations, and Going a little bit higher than just an initiation level is there's a point where you go, oh, it stops with me.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I look like. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like you just bring it right back down. It doesn't matter. I'm here to serve.
Hmm.
I have to clear my own junk in order to accurately serve another human. And I have to serve God's humans, right? This is how you spread light in the world. You have to serve other people. So did I go off track yet?
No, just how it's affected your own psychology, which I think we're still on track with.
Yeah. So
Your own sense of spirituality and what that means to you.
it really led to my sense of spirituality being obviously much more personal.
Hmm.
Of I do the things that I do so that I can be stronger, whether that be meditation, or rituals, or prayer,
Hmm.
um, or classwork, or healings,
Hmm.
or whatever. I do those so that I can connect in, and when I connect in, what's really happening is I'm connecting to God. It's like
Yeah.
there's God is in every one of us, right? And so like spiritual has like a really bad definition in culture. So like
Hmm.
that goes everywhere from like new age to being like firmly rooted in a religion. But I think as long as you're seeking God and doing good works, you're spiritual. That's that you're working on your spirit, right?
Right.
um, so connecting in, if there's a bit of God in every one of us, connecting in with ourselves is to get to know God and to deepen that relationship with God. And if you deepen
Hmm.
your relationship with God, you take a whole heck of a load off of yourself.
You don't
And
really need opinions.
yeah, you really don't. And that's
Yeah.
really what happens is it's I do talk a lot and I'm a very loquacious person, but I have gotten significantly quieter over the years.
Hmm.
uh, I don't need to listen to respond anymore. It's like
Hmm.
I try to listen to understand, and that is part of my spiritual journey as well. It's just trying to connect into myself to get past my own crap and get my crap out of my way. And I find that when I listen to others and just do all the stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. How would you say, in other ways, you mentioned earlier, like mystery school has made you more of like an administratively functional adult. And I love that way of talking about it. Can you connect like, business and finances and all that stuff with opinions and like how opinions used to play into that for you and maybe how that's changed?
Oh, 100%. So you get this you get this opinion of yourself, right? It's now this word is everywhere. You get this idea of yourself as a healer. So for me as a chiropractor, I had some very deep connections happen when I was on several people's tables over the years. And that really opened up deep esoteric experiences, for lack of a better way of putting it. I
Mm.
mean, just things happened that I could not explain.
While
And
you were receiving chiropractic
while I
adjustment.
was receiving chiropractic care, and that colored my experience of like, I want to do that for people,
Mm.
right? Ultimately what I had realized over the years was that was because I wanted other people seeing me doing that for other people,
Mm.
and that just pollutes the whole thing. Keep me
Yeah.
on track here a little bit
because
more.
that because that's not really you having an authentic spiritual experience or
No.
sharing an authentic spiritual experience. It's wanting to have your identity
Yeah.
connected to your remembrance of a past spiritual experience, and then what that means to be able to maybe kind of transfer or share that with someone else.
Right. So
Yeah,
as you so
like
you
the
get this
guru or the teacher or the healer archetypal role in its distorted form.
yes. So
I'm
you're
going to
like,
give you a spiritual experience.
yeah, and you're like,
Yeah,
I'm the healer.
right,
Look at these things that I can do. Look at this power that comes out of my hands. Boom, I've affected it.
right.
And so, but the other thing that comes with healing, a lot of people that are healers don't understand that like healing is actually also a business.
Mm.
And we tend to think that like, oh, money doesn't matter. I just want to heal. So like at its best end, whereas at its most giving end that you think it is, you're like, I just want the world to heal. Money doesn't matter. And it's like, that's not true at all. The
Mhm.
objective observable reality is that you're performing a service for another human being, which you put your blood, your sweat, your tears, your hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans, maybe in
Hmm.
into that, right? So you're
Right.
not, people aren't paying you for the healing. They're paying you for all the work you've done on yourself and all the skill you've put into your hands
Yeah.
in order to accept that. In order, you, yeah, I want to heal the world, but you got to make a living,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with money. According in my path with mystery school, it was like, it was hard to make and hard to keep and hard to spend. It's like when you got some, it was like, oh, but I want to hoard it, and then that's energy. You're holding energy, and you're not doing anything with it.
Hmm.
So you learn, I think, pretty quickly that you can't just give it away, and you also, you can't let your healer be hurt. Your inner child gets wounded. People won't pay you sometimes, or and you have to create a structure around your healing. And when you create a structure and you create systems, you create like clarity in your life. And so I have this mentor, I kind of call him my chiropractic dad. His name's Dr. Peter Kevorkian. He's we were joking over the weekend. He's like, very, he likes things a certain way. And then the, the few of us that were in his class erupted. And then he spoke to that, and it spoke in here to me. It's, the more you have lined up, the more structure you have, the more clarity you have, and then you can spend time in play. So, I'm right in front of my table. This is where I spend all my time, being in play, being to able to interact with another human being, being able to help their system uh, gain some more structural neurological integrity in some way. That's playful to me, because someone's coming to me and say, hey, I need your help. I'm like, great, let's help. And it's like,
Hmm.
I get to honor my inner child with that. But I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't understand that I also have to have rent to pay, and I have to have bills and auto debit and make sure the lights stay on, and be completely okay with the fact, you might make $8,000, but you spent $7,000, and you don't get to have an opinion about that.
Hmm.
You just understand that that's the books, and you got to do the books.
Yeah.
And for me, I have found that I've been able to administrate that out. I have an amazing assistant slash office manager who's helped pick up the energy where I'm not as good, and to delegation, like and to even to understand that delegation is a thing, to be an administratively functional adult. To go, you know what, I'm actually not that great at that, but you know who is? You're great at that.
Yeah.
And why don't we trade something like, services or money for
Hmm.
your ability to do that where I'm not. So it frees up space to do all the things that you really want to.
Right. So
So
let's connect that even more to opinions. Like how is shifting opinions or releasing them or letting them go or transmuting them or whatever we want to call it, how is that played into your ability to move forward in those ways that you just described?
so first and foremost, I think it's gone from I'm healing you to I'm just helping you heal yourself.
Hmm. Connect that even more for me and for the viewers around business and finance. What is that? How does that shift of thinking that I'm healing you and then transforming that into I'm just helping you heal yourself, which is maybe we could say more objective reality, because you're not really, it's like we're talking here about like getting out of opinion and more into reality. The reality is their body is healing itself. You are facilitating it by adjusting them. So as you move from the sort of the opinion level to the reality level that's below that, can you connect that more? Like, can you connect that with how you've been able to flourish and thrive more in your business and what that means financially, and just help me understand that connection?
So taking, I'm going to do my best here.
Sure. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I get ADD moments, especially when we go into the deep topics. We're really unpacking it, and thank you for your help doing it.
Yeah.
Um, you go from that opinion of I'm helping you or I'm healing you, to the body is I'm helping you heal yourself. That puts you in sort of like a time and space where there's no opinion. Okay. And I this is there's kind of like a deep weaving web in my mind, and there's so many different places I want to go to it, and I'm just trying to stay on task with it.
Yeah.
So Thank you for being patient.
Yeah.
Um, it unpacks when you free up space where it was holding you back, right? So my opinions about finances, healing, it holds you back. It really, you don't do it. Like for me, the resistance, that being held back is like things aren't getting done. I'm not actually getting new patients into the office. I'm not, I don't have a structure. Okay, if somebody comes in the door, um, I need to have an understanding of like, what's the line of, am I going to take them through a set of questions? How am I going to get to know that person? How am I going to bring them from, I have this thing wrong with me, to your body is this amazing healing mechanism and it can heal itself. And here, let's show you how. And isn't this great? When
Mm.
you start to embody that energy, what happens is you start to flow. You start to enter this kind of like flow state. You've created like a container, you've created space for things to happen more. It's like,
You're saying like you can't really create a real container with a lot of opinions.
not at all. No,
Yeah.
you know,
That's what I'm hearing you say. Like you kind of like saying it a lot of different ways, but like it's like you weren't able to build a solid container for your patients when you
right,
had a lot of opinions.
exactly. And when
And
I got out of opinion, I just breathe in, breathe out, one foot in front of the other, build a structure, put a Word document, do a PowerPoint, do a slide, have a thing set out, paperwork, you know,
yeah,
and it creates that container. And it's that, um, like Field of Dreams from way back in the day with Kevin Costner. If you build it, they will come.
right.
It's when you create a container, it will get filled. Like nature abhors a vacuum. So you've created this space. Like I just recently moved into a bigger office, and I now have full control of, you know, I have the waiting room now. I'm not sharing that space with anyone. And so
Mm,
I hold my energy in my adjusting space, and it's filtering out into the waiting room. And it's, you know, that energy is kind of like the good we're doing in this office is creating, conditioning the field around us, and it's putting good out into the world. And you can start to kind of feel that, and it affects Somerville and it affects Cambridge, and it starts to affect, and then people are just walking in.
yeah.
And that never happened in my old office because I was
Mm.
just sitting there in my opinions. Oh, this place is small, and oh, you got 47 steps to come up to it. Instead of just being like, boy, I just want to love and serve people, and this is how I'm going to do it.
So this goes back to what you were saying about your opinions were taking you out of your joy.
Yeah,
Just think having that heavy layer of thoughts and opinions about this is what's happening right now
yeah.
instead of just enjoying what is.
Yeah. When you're able to free up space to just be in the moment, there is only right now, not to be cheesy about it, you know,
Mhm.
but like there is no yesterday, and tomorrow definitely hasn't happened. When you can exist in this space right now, it's like you're an infinite possibility.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even just sort of, yeah, I just like, you can feel it right here.
That's going to have a big effect on your business, and it's going to have a big effect on who you're adjusting. And that's really cool that people just walk in your door now.
I love it. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, welcome.
Welcome. Would you like to get adjusted?
Yeah.
Um,
How can I help?
yeah. What what role has a mystery school played in overcoming opinions for you? Like how does like just I know we kind of touched on this several times, but if you can just sort of tie it back up because we're getting to the end of our time together tonight. How has the mystery school helped you shift out of opinion specifically? Like what have you done that's helped you overcome opinions?
So this is actually going to just turn into a plug for one of your biggest classes,
Mm-hmm.
to study Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the the structure that you create for us, the structure that is created for us through Kabbalah, and you as the teacher, and the way that you do yours, has created a system. I mean, it's a system of asking questions.
Right.
And I think earlier on in this podcast, I had said, like, you have to ask yourself questions. Well, why
Mm.
is this? Why is that? That's where I get all that from, is from studying Kabbalah, and
Yeah.
to go through those experiences. And it's not just sitting there reading a book and, oh, this is really interesting in theory, which feeds a whole other past opinion of myself and being fulfilled of knowledge. You get the point. In Kabbalah, you get a structured system of asking yourself questions and receiving answers. And you may not always receive the answer you want, but
Mhm.
the answer that you get, that's the next thing you have to go on. And you have to ask more questions
Yeah.
and ask more questions. And when you're
To
asking
connect you more to
questions,
reality.
yeah, when you're asking questions, you're not in opinion.
Yeah.
Because to have an opinion is something, oh, I know the way this is. Well, you have created no space for asking a question
Yeah.
because you already know it. And where is there space for learning and growth if you already know?
Yeah. Why would you even ask?
Yeah. It's like, what's the
Yeah.
point?
Yeah. Questions kind of short circuit opinions,
Yeah.
at least in the
Great
moment
way
when
of
you're
putting it.
asking them. Now you could turn around and make another opinion. Um, but in that time when you made the space, you were not an opinion. You were open.
Yeah.
As long as the question was authentic. It wasn't some sort of leading question to like try and get a specific answer. Okay, universe, I know that the answer is this, and now I'm going to ask you. But if you genuinely are asking, you can't hold an opinion.
That would absolutely describe my first Kabbalah experience.
The whole year.
Oh, tour until the middle end where uh, my BS was no longer sustainable from an energetic or physical perspective, and it all just came crashing down around me. And what I was left with, like, okay, why did that happen? No, no, I know why that happened because
Hmm.
the tree told me. It's like, no, no, you don't, no more.
Hmm.
Sit with
Drop
it now.
the opinion.
Drop your crap.
Yeah.
But from that space of brokenness, you can only build up from bottom.
Yeah.
And it's provided me the tools to build a much stronger foundation in my physical life and in my spiritual life, which then just bleeds right out into how you're doing everything.
Yeah. And that usually that drop your crap kind of moment is easy if you can identify where you have that opinion.
Right.
You know,
Kabbalah definitely helps you identify where you have that opinion.
yeah. And if you're not really willing to face it, toward the end of Kabbalah, it will sort of really throw it in your face.
Yeah.
It'll really put it right there for you and be like, okay, here's where you're at. This
Yeah.
is like you didn't want to see it sooner because it was difficult or because there was pain. We don't want to see things because of pain, and opinions kind of help us to mask the pain and keep the pain suppressed,
Yeah.
keep it externalized. Like, well, I think this, and that's over there. But usually, opinions like keep reality away from us, and as they keep reality away from us, we don't have to feel um, what's going on over there in reality, and because maybe reality doesn't feel good.
It's painful, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's painful to face things as they are, only until you heal.
Yeah.
And healing, maybe doesn't have to take a whole lifetime to heal something. Maybe you don't have to keep going through the same pattern again and again and again. You can actually just heal, just actually be done with it, just actually know who you are, and then it's not. We don't need opinions when we know who we are. We don't need to have an opinion about it.
Right.
And people say that to me, like, I wouldn't say all the time, but pretty often people observe things about themselves changing, and they're blown away how easy it is. How easy it is when you know yourself to just not really think too hard about it.
Yeah.
And how much energy is expended on having all those opinions. Like we waste so much energy on thinking so many thoughts about how we think things are and we think they're supposed to be, or we think like the story that we were talking about earlier, what we think happened in the past in the story, what
It's
we think is
exhausting
going
just
on right now.
describing it.
Yeah, and exactly, it's like, oh man, I'm getting a headache talking about it, you know. And then when we let that go, life is so free and so simple without those opinions.
Yeah.
So amazing. Well, we're like over our time here already,
Oh, wow.
so it goes quickly. Yeah. Thank you
That
so much
that
for
went
being
really.
on tonight and letting me see your new chiropractic office. I haven't been over for an adjustment in like a month now, and you moved. So congratulations on that, and growing everything and serving Somerville and beyond. And yeah, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
Awesome. Hope you all have a great night. Again, this is Dr. Nick Penzarella over at LifeWorks Chiropractic in Somerville. I'm Jordan Bain, and have a wonderful night, everyone.